All right. Hey, everyone. This is Kit Cabello with Hard Lens Media. Welcome to this short live stream. It's gonna let this live stream just build up for a few short seconds, but I think it's imperative that we have this conversation about Jimmy Dore and force the vote. I found a very interesting video, and you can find the links to it in our show notes. It's in the description box below. I recommend you guys check it out. It's titled Meet the Pseudo-Left Imperialists Fighting Against Universal Healthcare. And basically, it's a 14-minute video that goes into detail about the numerous commentators that have been very critical towards Jimmy Dore's suggestion plan of hashtag force the vote. Now, I want to have hope that at least somewhere along the line, a lot of progressive media, those who are part of the independent media circuit, those who are really for progressive changes, all can unite and rally around this idea. It's fundamentally important. As it stands right now in the United States, 330,000 Americans have died from the coronavirus pandemic, and those numbers don't look like they're going to be decreasing anytime soon. And I know there's a lot of hope for this vaccination, but let's say we do defeat coronavirus with this vaccine. Let's say we are successful in defeating this terrible, terrible disease, this virus that's impacting people all across the world. Who's to say that there won't be another virus somewhere down the road a year from now, 2 years from now? We cannot predict the future, but there's one thing that's been made evidently clear from this pandemic throughout all of 2020. The rest of the world has healthcare. We do not. The richest country in the world does not have healthcare to take care of its people. We are dying. We are hurting. One of the leading causes of homelessness in this country is medical bills. And a lot of Americans choose not to go to the hospital. My colleague Daniel Lupker has said on the show numerous times, and this is very true, but it varies from state to state. But it costs $100 per block if you are in an ambulance going to the hospital. So that means you, the average citizen, well, I hope your journey's fast and quick to the hospital and won't take some time to get there. This is what happens when we have private health care in this country. But our politicians, both Democrat and Republican, have allowed this to happen. And because Jimmy Dore, who said it himself, he's a pothead comedian, we need to force these politicians to do the right thing. And one of them is basically holding Nancy Pelosi accountable. We've shown on our show, as well as numerous other independent media networks have shown on their shows respectively, Nancy Pelosi talking in 1993, 1994 about the need for single-payer health care. Now, somewhere along the line, she might have got a truckload of money and decided to shut up about it. Well, we can't afford to have her be Speaker of the House and have her be quiet about this. She said it herself that she feeds poor people, that she does all these great things, but she never follows through. She even admitted it on national television that the reason why we never got additional stimulus checks was because she wanted to hurt Trump. Okay, well, the American people got hurt. So in this video, Meet the Pseudo-Left Imperialists Fighting Against Universal Healthcare. Again, that video is in the description box below in our show notes. It goes into detail about how people like in the TYT network, Majority Report, and numerous others have been speaking out and critical of Jimmy Dore, but not offering any kind of real solution in their own right. Now, on the one hand, maybe they don't like Jimmy Dore's delivery of the message or how he's going after AOC. But where is their alternative? Where is their solution? We tried being nice to these politicians, and we got to hold their feet to the fire. I covered in yesterday's live stream how Biden and his administration are basically surrounding themselves with corporatists. They're backing away from all their campaign promises, and it's already looking like, at the end of the day, whatever Biden said on the road or whatever any progressive politician said on the road for Biden, he's not going to follow through on them. So instead, we have to look at alternative paths. And, you know, a lot of these commentators that were critical of Jimmy Dore, let's take, for example, Nomiki Konst, who had a very interesting relationship with NATO and also her experience in Libya, was a vocal person who was against Jimmy Dore's hashtag force the vote. And in the video, it shows her basically using a debunked talking point against Jimmy, where he somehow accepted Syrian money, which is not true at all. I urge you guys to check out this 14-minute video. It's very eye-opening, but it's also very depressing, because since Jimmy Dore has suggested hashtag force the vote, he's been constantly being attacked by those who we would think would be our allies. And look, maybe there's still a pathway where we can all get together on this, but we got to put aside our egos and our pride. And that's asking a lot in this day and age of social media. The real issue is we have to have Medicare for all. We have to do force the vote. We have to call these politicians. There's 15 individuals. If you go to forcethevote.org, sign your name on the petition. There's 15 progressive men and women that are right now able. If we call them, if we do this right now, we might have maybe a slim chance of maybe making some real change. I can't think of any other pathway. We've constantly heard this, especially during the general election, especially by people who have the coveted blue check mark, that if we hold Biden's feet to the fire, if we hold the Democrats' feet to the fire, that somehow they're going to listen to us. My question is, what does holding their feet to the fire look like? If Biden has made it clear he's not going to listen to us, we got to go to Congress. We got to try. And one of the things is we got to get rid of Nancy Pelosi. And this whole idea of that if Nancy Pelosi is not the Speaker of the House, that somehow a Republican will step in. No. That's not the case at all. The Democrats have a majority. It's a slim majority, but it's a majority. Remember, before November 3rd, the Democrats had 230 seats. Now they're down to 219. They still have the majority. But remember, since Nancy Pelosi has been the basically de facto leader of the House Democrats, the Democrats have lost seats, lost power, lost influence. So now's not the time to be polite to somebody like Nancy. Clearly, in her old age and in her corrupt, inept leadership, she has got to step aside. And this is where, again, AOC, I do have respect for her, but she's got to do this. And so does Rashid Tlaib, so does Ilhan Omar, so do all the other congressmen and women that are on the hashtag force the vote petition. Please sign your name on it. This isn't about Jimmy Dore, and this isn't about anyone else that has something against Jimmy Dore. We got to put aside our egos and pride. We got to do this for the people. Because at the end of the day, if we don't start speaking out, well, that 330,000 dead Americans right now, again, 330,000 dead Americans from the coronavirus pandemic, that number will continue to increase. And again, it's impossible right now for a lot of Americans to even pay off a medical emergency. Let's not even factor in the pandemic right now. It is a disaster if an American citizen has to go to the hospital. So to our international audience, consider yourselves very lucky, because our health insurance in the United States is tied to our jobs. We've got to make change. And the first thing is holding our politicians accountable, even if they're people we respect, even if they align with our issues. We cannot afford them to be silent on this. With that being said, I think it's also important that we continue to be critical of them. If they don't follow through with our demands, if they don't follow through with our wants, well, then they got to go. I also want to bring up this fascinating article from The Hill, and it's very interesting. It's titled, COVID-19 Could Complicate Pelosi's Path as Speaker Next Year. It came out today, but it's a sign that the Democrats are not as strong as they are, and any of this weak defense that we're seeing from a lot of larger platforms that, oh, we can't afford to lose Nancy, it's BS. Nancy Pelosi herself has done this to the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi, with her inept leadership, has put herself in this situation. All these problems go to Nancy. Nancy chose not to give us additional stimulus checks. Nancy chose to abandon her principles in 1993 and 1994, if she ever really had them. So I think at this point, we have to be aggressive. We have to push back. As Speaker Nancy Pelosi seeks the support to keep the gavel for another term, her allies are keeping close watch on a potential wild card that could complicate her path next months. COVID-19. Pelosi is already facing a slimmer majority in the next Congress after Democrats were clobbered at the polls in November. I thought the Democrats had this in the bag, but I guess not. Corporate media lied. Meaning she can afford far fewer Democrat defections than the 15 who opposed her 2 years ago. and lawmakers must be present on the House floor to cast their vote for Nancy, precluding the option for members to vote remotely, as many have done throughout the pandemic. The combination of factors creates a chance that Democrats could face a dilemma on January 3rd, in which Pelosi locks up the Democratic support to remain Speaker, but coronavirus concerns, illness, quarantines, or otherwise prevent a sufficient number of them from being in the Capitol to log their votes. So, to the 15 progressive men and women that are on the hashtag Force a Vote, go to forceavote.org on that petition. This is your chance to build your coalition up and remove Nancy. Nancy has to go. A failure of Pelosi to secure support from half of the voting members would, at the very least, throw the process into chaos. In the Democrats' nightmare scenario, the mass could tilt so far in the Republicans' favor that it yields a GOP speaker. Knowing the Democrats, they're not going to let that happen. They're going to show up. But we have to hold their feet to the fire, and maybe something can happen. Let's say, just theoretically, we had 6 or 8 people out with COVID, and the Republicans have none. They probably could elect Kevin McCarthy and said Representative John Yarmus, referring to the House GOP leader. Now, here's the thing that I want to make very clear. We're only asking Nancy Pelosi to put Medicare for all for a vote on the floor. That's all she has to do. Now, there's a good chance, like a lot of people have said, that Medicare for all will fail on the House floor. But it will shine a light on these corrupt politicians at the height of a pandemic that they don't give a damn about us. In fact, look at the recent stimulus bill. They never cared about us in the first place. A measly $600, and now they're still struggling to give us a $2,000 stimulus check? Dare I say it, the American people, whether you are left-leaning, right-leaning, or in the center, or independent, it doesn't matter, we are all entitled to at least $8,000 to $10,000 in a stimulus check. If corporations are getting multi-million, multi-billion dollar bailouts, if foreign countries are getting bailouts and relief, the American people are damn well entitled to a 5-figure, I'm going to push it up even further, a 6-figure stimulus check. We are struggling. 30 to 40 million Americans are at risk of being evicted at the end of January 31st. What's so difficult, Nancy, about putting Medicare for all for a vote on the floor? And AOC, and to the entire 15 progressive men and women that are on the petition for Force to Vote, what's so difficult for fighting for Medicare for all? That's why you guys got elected in the first place. You got to fight, and that means fighting those in power. That includes Mama Bear. Lawmakers were reminded of their vulnerability this week when 5 more members of the House tested positive for COVID-19, bringing the total number of infected lawmakers to at least 35 since the pandemic hit the United States roughly a year ago. With that in mind, Pelosi supporters say it's an outbreak over the holidays, not Democratic detractors, that poses the single greatest threat to Pelosi's otherwise expected speakership victory next month. So, at the end of the day, let's just say AOC and the other 15 progressive congressmen and women choose not to do Force to Vote. Well, if that's the case, well, then maybe Nancy's not Speaker of the House. Maybe this coronavirus is going to take care of Congress, which I think for a lot of Americans, since Congress has a 13% job approval rating, maybe some Americans might applaud the virus for doing something that maybe a lot of Americans want to see Congress deal with, and that is we are all hurting, and it's about time Congress feels the same pain we're feeling. So with that being said, the article goes on to continue. We're in a healthcare crisis, right? No one can get sick. That's the X factor here, said one House Democrat, a Pelosi ally, who spoke anonymously to discuss a sensitive topic. We need everyone to be healthy. That's the big fear. Well, hey, say that to the American people as they're struggling. Some of those fears have been assuaged with the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine. To protect the continuity of government, House and Senate lawmakers now have the opportunity to receive a vaccination in the Capitol from the attending physician. Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell were among the first to get their shots on Friday. Remember, this is the same Congress that also voted to increase their health care. You're not getting it, but they can. We covered that on the show. You can check that video out after this live stream. But many lawmakers told The Hill they've been able to stay healthy all year by sheltering in place and avoiding the Capitol completely because they've been all on vacation enjoying their break while all of us have been struggling. Emergency rules pushed through by Democrats in May have allowed lawmakers to vote remotely or by proxy. That's meant elderly members, those battling cancer or other illness, or those caring for small children have not needed to fly back to Washington each week for votes. On December 18th, for example, nearly 90 Democrats voted by proxy. So I think we understand how incompetent our Congress is at this point. And at the end of the day, you cannot trust these politicians to be your hero. You got to push back. The people have to speak out. There must be protests. There must be a general strike. Something must be done. And force to vote is the last best chance, I think, in my opinion, because we got to make an initiative. We got to make a statement, because if nothing is done throughout 2021, if groundwork is not set through for progressives and independents, it's going to be a slaughter during the 2022 midterm election cycle. Remember, to all those vote blue no matter who people, Trump is not going to get prosecuted. Same way as Obama didn't prosecute Bush. And just remember, right, bringing the Republicans in on this, Trump never locked up Hillary. It's one big club and we ain't in it. So, going further, I just want to read the final paragraph in this. Pelosi, the nation's first female speaker, is no stranger to fending off challenges to her leadership over the years. Most recently, she beat back a considerable revolt in 2018 when she squeaked to victory with 220 votes. And despite the thin margins, there's an overwhelming sense among Democrats that she'll find a way to do it again next month, coronavirus or none. I urge you guys to read the full article. But this is frightening, because if Nancy Pelosi is once again elected into office as Speaker of the House, what will she do? What is she going to do? Will she fight for Medicare for all? Well, somewhere along the line, she gave up on that. Perhaps she was bribed with a lot of money, or perhaps she never gave a damn about it in the first place. This is something we cannot allow anymore. So when Jimmy Dore says forced to vote, it's not about him or his ego or anyone else's pride. This is about the American people who are suffering right now. I ask all of you to consider this. This fight for a better future will not be easy. And it's up to our politicians, the people we elect into office, to represent us. That's the whole idea of a democracy. And it saddens me that there are people going after Jimmy Dore because he suggested this idea. What's wrong with pointing out the fact that, look, we got these progressive men and women in Congress. It's about time they fight for us. It's about time they push back for us. We can't play nice with the Democratic establishment, because the Democratic establishment has made it very clear that they don't respect us. And as soon as we gave our vote up to Biden, I didn't vote for Biden, I voted third party, but as soon as progressives gave up their vote for Biden and we got nothing in return, it should have made very clear that we were never going to have a seat at the table. This is why we have to be aggressive. So if you haven't signed it already, if you haven't shared it already, go to forcetovote.org. If you're on Twitter, Moving for People's Party has that link pinned on their Twitter page. Sign your name on the petition. And if one of those 15 congressmen and women are your representative, call them. Ask them to force the vote, not to vote for Nancy. And if Nancy does put Medicare for all for vote on the floor, so be it. And if it fails, we show the whole world and the whole country just how heartless our politicians are and why we need to get involved in 2022 and going into 2024, and maybe why we need to start investing into third parties and breaking away from this two-party system that has chosen to represent the top 1%, that has chosen to represent Wall Street, big banks, and major corporations. We deserve more. We are entitled to more. We have suffered enough. Too many Americans are at risk of being homeless. Too many Americans are at risk of dying right now. We are a strong people, all of us together. But we have to remind these politicians that they are public servants. We have to look at other options too, third parties. If you want to check out an interesting interview, check out my interview with Brad Leo Lyon that premiered earlier today, and about his movie on third parties. Check that out. We got to start having this conversation. We have to look at alternatives. We just can't fall back to the old narrative of vote blue no matter who, and maybe they'll listen to us. They made it clear that they're not. We got to fight back. And the thing is, are you going to be that person who says, no, I'm not going to do it? Or are you going to be that person that's going to step up? We need people to fight back. With that being said, I want to thank all of you for joining me for this short live stream. I want to give a shout out to Mona Carmona, who is moderating the live stream chat. I see Fred Edward as well. We also got a YouTube super chat from Vera Bisego, $4.99 super chat. Keep it up. Thank you so much. With a pair working out. We also got so many other people who are in here as well. Shout out to everyone in the Hardlens Media crew. Thank you so much again for the YouTube super chat. We do appreciate it. If you are interested in supporting Hardlens Media, please consider being a Patreon supporter. Follow us on Twitter. Hardlens Media is live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're live on our Rockfin show every Monday and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Check out our fun channel, Chicago Reacts. And with that being said, never, ever back down. And let us all do what we can to build a better future. Sign the petition, force the vote, make your voice heard. We can win this fight. It needs all of you, the people, to step up. All of us together. Have a great evening.